Lorien MacAuley, and I work here for the Food Council, Agricultural and Sustainability Specialist. And along with Esther, we coordinate the MoCo program. And around this time last year, we had the MoCo Food and Beverage Expo with our MoCo businesses, which are small food and beverage businesses that are headquartered in the county. And we are always hearing from these businesses about regulatory and legal compliance issues. And there are just a number of issues that we've just been privy to by way of the MoCo program. And I know at our MoCo Food and Beverage Expo, unfortunately, we had several businesses even at the expo unfortunately not able to offer samples, et cetera, due to legal compliance issues. So the idea for a survey was born on just, kind of collecting information on what the big barriers are for food and beverage businesses operating in the county on their regulatory and legal compliance. So we went ahead and sent out our survey. 15 had responded to the survey. So these are all food and beverage business owners operating in the county who sell at retail, farmers markets, CSAs, wholesale and online primarily, and a few other venues. Like I know, there were a few other venues listed. And just by way of the timeliness, the county council had recently, I don't know if you all had heard about their really good work that they have done with streamlining legal and compliance issues for restaurants. So we thought that this might be, we're hoping that this is a good time to potentially revisit the streamlining of procedures for, regulatory legal compliance procedures for small food and beverage businesses in the county overall. So without further ado, let me figure out how to advance my slide. Great. We collected a lot of quotes from businesses, and many of them gave us lots of feedback. So just by way of showing sort of the state of affairs within the county in terms of regulatory and legal compliance issues, many of them said they agree with the streamlining of the processes. There seems to be a lot of confusion. We're told to go to one agency for answers and that agency sends us to another. And so that's like sort of a common theme that you hear businesses say, that there's just some confusion on the process. That shouldn't be so much of a guessing game. One business owner says, if I need to write a plan, give me a form or a flow chart of exactly what you want to be covered. Some say it's hard to find information on the giant VHHS website. There's one business that reported that, and I tried to, I scrubbed the data to make sure that these businesses are anonymous. So sorry, this is wordy, but a lot of other similar businesses read it as if they are cottage food, which is a cottage food business, is a business that doesn't have to go through the same regulatory processes. But this business owner says, we were told you couldn't without being a fully licensed facility. It ended up costing us over $75,000. The other companies that aren't licensed in Montgomery County don't have the expense and the debt. So we're hearing from businesses that there's so much confusion that some business owners are even paying extra money and going into significant debt and significant expenditure, and that they are they may or may not have actually had to do that. They may have actually qualified as a cottage food business in the first place, but there was confusion. And then, again, this is reiterated by other business owners that say things like, I hear other producers being asked to do things that we aren't being asked to do. So we asked MoCo businesses, how difficult are the below processes in Montgomery County? And as you can see, if you jump down to the bottom, obtaining a food allergen awareness certificate on a scale of 1 to 5, this was the only sort of task that just came in as an average level of difficulty. Whereas, we have like all sorts of sort of a above average, level of difficulty. The middle here, submitting submitting the hazard analysis, critical control point, the HACCP plan, purchasing equipment and materials to comply with regulations, maintaining those equipment and materials, writing their food service plan, obtaining the Montgomery County Certified Food Service Manager license, and getting a food service facility inspected. So those are above average, but not, they're all like sort of lumped together as above average difficulty. But the one thing that is significantly more difficult is comparatively is getting a one-day permit to sell at a pop-up. And that also includes our businesses that sell at farmers markets. So a little bit to highlight on the certified food manager. Businesses have to get a certified food manager test. And we have heard a little bit from businesses, and this is, I heard from a few businesses throughout the years that this business owner says that the certified food manager test is good for 5 years, but the actual county will only honor it for 3 years. And this business owner says, I can't help but feel like they're milking us, like as if they were feeling like, they're having to renew it more often than they really even needed to, and each time it costs. It's the expense of getting the certified food manager. So it's unfortunately it's just they're having to do it more often, and that it takes 6 hours to complete the certified food manager test. And once completed, you have to drive to Wheaton to get your picture taken. So time is money. If you have employees, you have to pay them for 6 hours and then get them to Wheaton. So again, this looks like there's room for improvement in terms of maybe streamlining this. So survey respondents were asked, how difficult is it to comply with the below? During their one-day farmers market, when they're doing sampling at a farmers market. So as you can see, one of the most troubling parts of this is accessing a potable water source. But there's really not, and it's kind of not surprising that business owners say that maintaining the product at the correct temperature isn't that challenging, because I think they would have to anyway for just inventory management. The hand washing station is also up there in terms of being a little more difficult. And if you can, if you've ever seen the hand washing station, it makes sense, because I think there's the need to basically have like a certain kind of water dispenser, and it has to be captured within, like, say a 5-gallon bucket or something. And it's a little bit specific. So, and then they're asked to cover food with sneeze guards, providing the approved utensil washing station. That's fairly, as you can see, that's fairly comparatively a little easier. So, and a few of the highlights about the farmers market requirements. One of our farmers reported that because the MoCo Health Department is so demanding of unreasonable processes when samples are offered, we offer no samples at our farm stand at farmers market, and that way we avoid all of this. So we have like, sort of this situation where farmers are simply deciding not to offer samples, which is a little bit of a shame. And then another farmer says, we decided that the farmers market one-day permit wasn't worth it. Oh, I'm sorry. I believe this was a business owner who was going to be selling at the farmers market. But they decided that the farmers market one-day permit wasn't worth it. It was over $100, and we had to submit detailed forms specific to the safety plan. So we have people literally opting out of the entire farmers market because the one-day permit is too arduous. And then apparently one business owner reports that they were requiring 2 different permits for the same setup at 2 different farmers markets. So the idea that they'd be selling, say, at like the Poolsville and the only farmers market, but they would need 2 different permits for the 2 different spaces, even though they have the exact same setup. So that's also an opportunity for streamlining. To continue this, there's another another business owner said that the temporary food permit is prohibitively expensive. And kind of one of the themes that I know emerged was that I've gotten different answers from different inspectors on whether the hand washing station water at temporary events needs to be held hot. So sort of the idea that it seems that the information is sometimes a little bit mixed up so that it's different staff could be giving different answers to business owners. So another business owner says, oh no, this is a farmer saying, if we were to try to open a co-packing facility to process raw farm products, it would take years to get it past MoCo approval. And the cost of operation would far exceed that in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where the Amish won't put up with that nonsense. So, you know, this is again, direct quote from a farmer who views it as just completely, practically prohibitively impossible to run something that the county would kind of desperately love to have, which is a co-packing facility to process raw farm products. And it's interesting that they have this perspective. So of course, we also asked the farmers and the business owners, generally speaking, what are your biggest challenges to operating your local food and beverage business? And actually, interestingly, they said access to labor was the hardest part. And I didn't dive down. These are the preliminary results. They're hot off the press, but I'd really like to dive down on what kind of businesses are, if it is harder to find labor, because I do know for our farmers, that's a serious challenge, but it's really a challenge in this environment for all small business owners. But I wanted to point out that you can see that legal compliance and regulatory is right up there as one of the biggest challenges. You know, followed by, it's interesting, followed by access to capital and finance, infrastructure and facilities. And then when you look at access to materials and supplies, that's not a problem. Marketing venues, interestingly, comparatively, it ranks a little lower, which I guess makes sense in Montgomery County, where there are pretty solid marketing venues currently. So just to conclude this survey, 92% of respondents agree or strongly agree that licensing and regulatory processes should be streamlined in Montgomery County, which I think is a pretty solid, you know, kind of rallying call to try to see where the process can be streamlined. And just as an interesting aside, 73% of respondents go to the Montgomery County Health and Human Services if they have questions. And this was far and away the agency they go to when they have any questions about licensing and regulatory. We asked if they went to a list of other county agencies, and the Health and Human Services is far and away where they go if they have questions. All right. So that is just a snapshot of the data. Again, it's completely hot off the press. So we're going to kind of dive down a little bit into this and consider this a sort of a sort of small sample and taste of maybe some other kind of opportunities to analyze in terms of where these regulations can be streamlined to make it more, to make it easier for small businesses in the county. But it gives us a few ideas and things to work with. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen and we can have some questions. And back to you, Esther. Sorry, I don't know who's first.
No problem. I see Serge has his hand up, and you can go ahead and unmute if you are ready.
Can you hear? Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about all that. I do have a question. Let me lower my hand here. When it comes to the development of these regulations, and we clearly see that it makes it very difficult for people within farmers markets and maybe even restaurants, small pop-up organizations per se, to operate. Who's writing these regulations? Because it sounds like common sense is outstripping people needing to start businesses up and keeping them viable and profitable. So that's just my question. I don't know if people within the local government and those who write the regulations are listening to small businesses.
Mm.
Right. And I mean, I can respond from, as much as I know, because I know that the county council is involved in regulations, and that regulations, especially for farmers market sampling, were revisited through the COVID-19 pandemic and weren't, and so things did get a little more controlled through the COVID-19 pandemic. So, and I also know that DHHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, they've had to interpret some of that legislation into, actual like policies and procedures for their agency. So I think one of the ways to sort of think about this is that the county council may want to sort of revisit some of those regulations,
Yes.
since they were just tightened a little bit during COVID-19, and now it might be nice to just reconsider.
Is there
That's from my point of view.
is there any organization that may want to take the lead on that and try to convince council members to revisit easing or modifying these regulations? Because any clarity would be appreciated so these businesses and organizations can be viable within the county, because this does nothing but reinforce what is already out there, that this county is hostile to business development creation, fairly or unfairly. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean I think that's something I'd like to also just also open up for discussion in the group of who would like to be involved in that. I think it's what we can do is gather information and look for opportunities and just sort of analyze like where there's those sticking points, and we'll keep kind of diving deep and figuring out where we can drill down and make things a little easier.
Thank you for bringing that up, Serge. That's so true. We need to really, it's important to collect the data, but also what do we do with it? And I'm so glad Nadia raised her hand, because she's actually from the small business office in the county. So I would love to hear her input, and just if what she's hearing from the businesses, because I know she deals directly with a lot of these small businesses based in the county. And I see she had her hand up, so I don't know if you want to have anything to respond to Serge.
Yeah, I think overall, I think this is a great discussion that we're having, number one. So I appreciate, the Food Council putting this together. The reality is, if we don't have feedback from the businesses, how difficult this process is, then I don't have enough push and arm to be able to go back in front of county council and say, hey, certain things need to be changed. Let's compare what Frederick County, let's compare what Prince George, let's compare what Baltimore might be doing, so that we are more competitive. And then just to give you guys a quick intro on myself, just in case you don't know. So I am part of the county executive office as the small business navigator. So the county has what is called the Montgomery County Business Center. And what we mainly focus is on assisting a lot of the startup businesses in the food industry. That's one of the industries that we focus on, navigating license, permit, registrations, issues that they might be having within. And so like within different agencies, like I have businesses who come to me, they're trying to open, a little coffee shop, and they're like, hey, my permit has been held up, and I go and I reach out to the director. I'm like, I need to know what's happening. I need to understand what is the holdup. Now, it shouldn't take me getting involved for the business owner to get the assistance, because if the business owner doesn't know about myself, then they are left in there. So we have been working hard to spread the word about the Montgomery County Business Center, so that businesses know we are not only there to help businesses like navigate process, but also to be able to advocate for them when they are running into these different difficulties with the license, with the permit. And then just quickly addressing that food manager certification, the council members, this was brought up to their attention. So that has now changed. Now it's every 5 years. It's effective as of July of this year. So that just shows the fact that the county council is listening. They want to be supportive of local businesses. The fact is, we don't know what we don't know. And if business owners or organizations, gather up a group of business owners who provide this type of feedback, then it's hard for us to have an understanding. And my background per se is more on the business side of things, so I understand what business owners go through. As you mentioned, sir, who's writing this legislation? How can it be more user-friendly? How can we have better guidance? How can we better support businesses? Because the reality is, like, we are supportive of local businesses. So as the small business navigator, which that is my role, is to be able to identify what are some of the issues, go back in front of county executive, in front of county council, like, that's my job, to say this process is convoluted, this process is difficult, we need to revise this, but I need to also go back to them with possible solutions to identify. Let's have the discussion with department directors, let's have the discussion with county council to take it to make changes and make things easier for businesses. So I will put my contact information in the chat for everybody. That way you guys have it. But I'm more than happy for us to take action. I think it's great that now we have data that is collected. But if we don't take action, it's just, another set of data collection that we know there are issues happening with many businesses, but let's do something about it.
Nadia, what is something that can come out of this data that we can collaborate with the Small Business Navigator Office to help push this forward? What can we do together? Or is the Small Business Navigator Office already collecting data?
We don't necessarily collect a lot of this type of data. So this data is valuable to us to go back and take the time to give the attention that is needed. What I would like to see is for us to be able to set up, I'm all for virtual, but there is something different about in-person meetings. Like, let's gather some of the businesses. I need to have a full understanding as to how difficult this was. Just because if I don't have the understanding, if you just tell me, hey, this regulation is complicated, okay, but tell me why. Explain to me, what did this regulation or line item that you needed to complete, how did it make the process difficult for you?
Mhm.
That's what I need to have a better understanding, so that we can all, as a collective group, can identify as possible viable solutions within regulations. Or is it the fact that, hey, we might need to make changes to regulations to make this process smoother for businesses?
So what I'm hearing is almost like a focus group style with the MoCo based businesses to really get dig deep into that feedback.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Nadia, I just want to say thank you so much, and we are happy to collaborate with you and write up these survey results, and then hope that these are simply just preliminary results that can lead to greater data collection. Happy to collaborate on that. And I just want to say thank you so much for everything your office does, because obviously without you, like, a lot of these businesses wouldn't be able to navigate, as effectively. And that's why I feel like, I'm happy that we are able to sort of be sort of a third party gathering this data, because a few of the business owners actually, just after this survey was sent out, just called me directly, and they did express that, they are uncomfortable giving feedback and criticism to the county agencies directly, because
And that's what I
they're
have
the
heard,
people in
because they
charge of the
feel
licensing.
they
So,
feel like it's going to affect the relationship or whoever they are working
Yeah.
with. Like, and I'm like, no, it's with me, it's kind of like I'm the middleman per se. So I will ensure that, yes, businesses shouldn't be affected, and departments and representatives shouldn't take things personal, because is affecting somebody's cost of a business. Is somebody being able to generate revenue to be able to support their family? So I have that understanding from that perspective. Now, I understand also the concern from the business owners. Hey, I feel like if I put a complaint, like they're gonna take it up on my business, or when it comes time to renewing my license, or when I need to get a one-day license. And that's what I'm here for, to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Mm.
And thank you, Esther. I noticed that Susan has her
Yeah.
hand up, and I'm sorry, Susan, I think it fades into the background of your background, but
That's all right. It's been an important back and forth, and that was all very helpful. I might have missed it, but what was the total number of respondents, and
15.
what are the total number of businesses? So what percentage did you actually get in your responses? Because that, while it's interesting to see what the, a snapshot is, in comparison to the total universe, that's what we would need to know, and more along Nadia's lines of, bringing more businesses together to be able to relate to this. That's the first part of my question. The second part of my question is, are there businesses here in this meeting that can confirm the results as well? Sort of adding to the numbers, adding to the voices, because those stories help too.
Exactly. And just to respond briefly to the first part of your question, we have 93 businesses in the MoCo Made program and 15 survey respondents. So these are obviously not, it's a representative sample, but not a sample that we could try our best to get more MoCo Made businesses to provide feedback during the next.
So that was 95, you said 95
Registered MoCo Made businesses, but 15 responded to the survey.
Okay, so that's a fairly small percentage. Just to note, from the standpoint of what you would need to do is actually, raise up by being able to collect even more data. And 95 probably, those are just the registered. So even outside of that, for Nadia's purposes, getting other businesses, how can this be opened up in a way that is, not just also, it wouldn't only benefit the MoCo Made or the local, it probably would also benefit other businesses as well. That's my point in terms of small business, for the bang for the buck for Nadia, and her comments about bringing in more.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point.
I see Serge had his hand up as well.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I offer two things. One, I'm a member of the Mid-County Citizens Advisory Board as a board member. So I'd like to try and invite Nadia to give a presentation, or maybe even one of you to give a presentation on this survey, because we have a significant number of people who own businesses within the Mid-County region. And so maybe getting the word out through this framework and maybe other frameworks could help with small businesses getting connected to Nadia, because it sounds like there is one doesn't know the other, and if they are candid with the other, there's a fear of having permits pulled or some other retaliatory measure taken against them. So I think that might go a good way, not a great way, towards reducing any real or perceived hostility. But it's very important to have a connection that could serve both the local government, them getting a footprint and an idea of what's going on out there, and connecting the businesses to local government, and finding that can be very helpful for them going forward.
Yeah, very good point, Serge. And I feel like, that's where luckily we can serve as a little bit of a middle person to kind of, help sort of shield businesses if they want to remain anonymous while giving feedback. So, yeah.
And Serge, in case you didn't see it in the chat, Nadia said she would love to connect with you, and she put her email in the chat. So definitely.
Definitely consider it done, Nadia, and thanks for that insight, because I mean, if you're afraid to put out samples at a farmer's market because of just a fear that you might not comply with the regulation that you might not even know about, or might think it doesn't make any sense, then that's a big problem. And it just goes back to what I asked earlier. Who's writing these regulations? And who are they listening to? So it's just very important.
Yeah, and I just, from my point of view, I know, just not speaking about even just Montgomery County, but just the USDA and, like, Food Safety Modernization Act, just in general, I think it's, there is this tension between needing safe food and needing businesses to still be able to operate, especially small businesses that have issues with those kinds of kind of overhead costs in their food safety procedures. So there's just that ongoing tension. And I feel like it's quite easy to make the case for more safety. And in fact, one of our survey respondents wrote this in their response, but that it's always easy to make the argument for greater safety rather than making the argument that, it's a much more complicated thing to analyze how much business expense that will produce. And and it's easy to, it's like when you go towards more safety, it's really extremely hard to peel that back and then sort of make it a right size of the food safety regulations. So let's see.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions before we toggle to the next segment?
I see Susan.
Oh, sorry, Susan.
I'm wondering if there's also a crossover of questions that could be asked of MoCo Made and other businesses that gets into, do they have difficulties accessing local produce for to use for their products, and whether there's an argument to be made of the crossover of the work that the Food Council is doing on, increasing local food production and also providing that to the MoCo producers to be able to get answers to those questions of, oh yeah, I would, make my jam out of, instead of Pennsylvania, but, MoCo fruits, if I could access more at a better price or whatever, or if there was an aggregation service, somehow to be able to merge those two arguments of being able to have, more information, as well as making the case that we need to shore up the local food production system.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Susan. Thank you. Just to be mindful of the time. Sorry, I just saw the time. This is a great discussion, but I don't want to miss the opportunity for Lorien to share about the cold storage microhub. I'm so excited to hear about that. And we will also do some Q&A on that as well. So thank you.
Right. And for those of you who recall seeing Ivy Baker in the meeting announcement, he had to, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it today due to a schedule conflict. So you got me today to give you a little update on the MoCo Microhub cold storage unit, but I'm really excited to share with you guys about it. Wait, one second. I can get this to advance. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just as a little background on the MoCo Microhub, all the way back in 2022, we received a grant of $39,000 from Washington Gas through the Greater Washington Community Foundation. And this was for the investment of a commercial grade walk-in cold storage unit. And it's 20 by 10 at the Agricultural History Farm Park, which I know all you all probably know where that is, but that's in Durwood. So the purpose of this large outdoor refrigeration unit, which basically looks like a large storage container, much like you'd see on the back of a train or on a shipping boat. And the purpose of this is to aggregate farm fresh products for small farmers in the county, and to serve as a we call it the micro hub, because this is a very small but mighty place where we hope that local farmers are able to aggregate their products, and we can assist them in getting their products into certain institutions. We hope, especially farm to school and farm to food bank. So as our potential impact, the unit can hold an estimated 10 standard pellets of product. And if we can, through the peak season, have product rotated every 2 weeks, we can distribute 300 pounds of produce annually. So, and that's at an estimated value of $850,000. So that's sort of an estimate of what the impact could be, essentially. This is the unit. It is at the Agricultural Estate Farm Park. It is not very much to look at, and I apologize. I did not have very good pictures. When Ivy Baker sort of wasn't able to make it today, I was like, well, these are the only pictures I have of the unit, but here it is. You can see it is right in the sort of back dumpster area behind the main office building of the Agricultural Estate Farm Park. But we like that because we have outfitted it with ramps and the handicap spaces it needs. And you can see the ramp underneath where you can pull it out. And it is locking, so farmers can access the unit whenever the park is open, and they can drive right up to where the dumpsters were. So it'll fit large trucks or whoever needs to pull right up to this unit and walk right in. It plugs right into there's an outlet right on the wall there. And what you can't see in this picture, but hopefully some of us are familiar with the Agricultural Estate Farm Park to know that garage door looking door leads right into a space that is a sort of the office uses it as sort of more or less a kitchen break room, but it is slowly being improved upon by Extension and the Office of Agriculture to one day, they hope in the long run, to be they have a few initiatives to make it into a shared kitchen space for farmers to do value-added products and for possible other uses as well. So just a little note about it, the facility, the actual cold storage unit is owned by the Office of Agriculture. The Food Council found funding for it, and we're committed to supporting them through the maintenance, to find funding for maintenance and to help them in their kind of vision of having this as part of a shared kitchen at the Ag History Farm Park. So that's in the long run. Ivy Baker has been contracted by the Food Council to develop sort of some standard operating procedures. How is the whole thing going to run? He has installed the shelving unit so that farmers don't have to just have a bare floor and use pallets. For farmers who use crates, they can put shelves of product in there. And then there's also space along the side for pallets of product. So anyway, he's developing the standard operating procedures, how often the cleaning, maintenance of the unit. And then Ivy Baker is also planning to train farmers when the space is finally open. And of course, as a pilot project, I wanted to mention one of the things the Food Council is very keen on is collecting and analyzing data related to the use of this unit. This first year is just our pilot year. We're gonna be sort of tweaking our processes throughout the year after it opens, and working with the farmers to make sure that the unit is just tailored to their needs. So just a few things we know right now is that we're going to be using our online platform. We've been setting up food corridors so that farmers just can go online, reserve the space, whether it be shelves or pallets, and then they can use it independently. There's going to be a code to open the door so they can just access it on their own. There's also equipment that they are able to borrow through the same online platform, so they can just reserve, if they would like, hand trucks and little quick up ramps to use the hand trucks over curbs and whatnot, and reusable crates. And we hope that those crates one day are going to be used over and over again for deliveries. So initially, for the farmers who sign up to use the cold storage unit, we're going to be giving them a number of waxed produce boxes. We're not sure how many yet. Depends on how many farmers sign up. But we have a number of waxed produce boxes to just give away. They're the expensive reusable kind that you see produce in all the time. And the unit is free of charge for farmers, at least for now. We're not sure if that will be, we hope it will remain free for farmers to use in perpetuity, but we can't completely promise that yet. But at least it's free of charge for farmers for the next year. And we're going to be announcing when we're going to have our farmers trainings in early December. So, and that'll be training on just how to store your product and to get all signed up. So next Friday, we're going to have a ribbon cutting. The people doing the ribbon cutting are some of the county council members and Mark Elrich. And we have, the big scissors and the ribbon and everything else. So you're invited, come on out for the spectacle. It is, next Friday, 1 o'clock to 2:50. The first ceremony, however, is, and I see Susan Eisendrath, I think I heard your name associated with this, so chime in if you would like. But the first ceremony is for the Compost Education Hub, and that's an extra ribbon cutting. So 2 ribbons cut on next Friday. First is for the Compost Education Hub at the Master Gardeners Demonstration Garden. And the second is for the MoCo Microhub, which will take place we're going to meet in the multi-purpose room and then proceed outside to the actual units. Feel free to RSVP and you are invited. Does anybody have any questions? And I will drop the link in the chat.
Yes, I already dropped the registration link in the chat, Lorien. Thank you for your presentation. I don't want to miss, Alice put a question in the chat and said, what temperature is the cold storage unit going to be kept at? And is it a Thermo King unit?
I don't think it's a Thermo King unit. We got it used. And we did not get it from Thermo King, even though we got quotes from Thermo King. And it's going to be kept at 41. So 41, we know we had to sort of consider that, because even though there are a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables that are kept more at 65 down to 55, we wanted to be able to also use it for more things like cheese and eggs and other products like that.
Thank you, Lorien. I see another question from Emma. Do you have a rough idea of how many farmers are interested in using it?
Very good question, Emma. Back 2 years ago, we had done a needs assessment, and there were over a dozen farmers who said they wanted to use it. Obviously, now it's been 2 years because long story short, and I know some of you have heard all about the process, but it just took us a lot of time to get the approval to go through. So that's why the lag time between the funding and opening of this project. So we've had to get back in touch with the farmers and ask them again, are you interested? And we do have at least 4 farmers who have said, yes, I would like to just store the product there.